Jim Jordan stood up in Congress today, but instead of fighting for justice, he tried to bury the truth beneath a pile of subpoenas and technical jargon. To him, the Epstein files debate was just another routine hearing, another chance to talk about rolling productions and paperwork. But let's be honest, this isn't about forms or procedures, it's about power. It's about whether the most notorious predator of our time, and the powerful people who shielded him, will ever face real accountability. Survivors of horrific abuse have waited years, some for decades, to see the truth come out. And yet in this moment Jordan chose loyalty, not to them but to a system designed to protect the well-connected. That decision exposes everything.
The Biden administration. I've heard TV anchors ask, in fact, I was asked this morning the same question. Now, put aside the fact that in 2019 I called on Andrew Acosta to resign because of his connection to the Epstein files, and I wanted to learn more about why Epstein was not prosecuted. Put aside what Mr. Raskin and Mr. Cummings did. Let's just take you at your word that Democrats said nothing. Is that a reason for you to do nothing? I don't understand the logic here that because you think the Democrats did nothing on the Epstein files in the Biden administration, that to own the libs, you now have license to leave sexual assault victims unprotected. It's just crazy that you hate the Democrats so much that you would let the most notorious child sex trafficker and the people connected to him not be held accountable because you want to own the libs. Let's just take you at your word. Okay, the Democrats did nothing. So you're going to do nothing is what you were telling me. The Democrats, of course, did not do nothing. But let me boil it down to a lesson that I have right in front of me every morning when a 6-year-old wakes me up around 5:45 and wants to watch the same movie over and over and over. That's Frozen. And there's a lesson in this film where Elsa is told by one of the trolls in the movie that if you can't see the future, all you can do is the next right thing. And having seen this, again, 100 times in the last couple years, my takeaway is if you don't know what's going to happen next and you can't change the past, all you can do is the next right thing. So even if you are right that the Democrats did nothing in the past, wouldn't the next right thing be to sign the discharge petition? Or are you so obsessed with just scoring political points that you would punish sexual assault victims? Is that who you are? I don't think that's who you are. When I listen to some of the legislation you propose on your side, I do believe sincerely you care about victims. And if that's who you are and you care about victims, sign the damn discharge petition. Okay, you can own us. I don't care. You can own us 1,000 times. If it gets us to 218 signatures, I will let you have whatever victory you think you're accomplishing. But it seems to me that you're more interested in telling me not to believe my own eyes, which is what the president is doing. The president is telling us not to believe our own eyes. And it's not just on the Epstein files and the birthday card. And by the way, guys, we can bring in a handwriting expert, but I have 2 eyes. And I know what that man's obnoxious signature looks like. And so do you. But Donald Trump has told us that he would end all wars on day one, that prices would plummet and jobs would soar. And where are we? Ukraine has never been weaker. We've never seen more jobs lost in America since Donald Trump was last president. Even conservatives are complaining about how expensive grocery prices are. And even his own health, he's trying to tell us not to believe our own eyes. Joe Biden looks like an Olympic athlete compared to a man who is hiding his illness. Donald Trump is a broken man who has broke his promises. And if we don't start checking him, we are going to be a broken country. So my friends, if you sincerely believe that Democrats dropped the ball and did not do enough under the Biden administration, then join us now in doing the next right thing and sign the discharge petition. Otherwise, you're telling sexual assault victims this is just about scoring political points, and they come last. I yield back.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield to the ranking member.
Well, just to add to your very eloquent statement there, it seems like these days every accusation is a confession. So the accusation is the Democrats have somehow changed their position. We've been opposed to child sex trafficking all along. We spoke out against it. I've introduced evidence to that effect. It's our friends across the aisle who've changed their position. They wanted to see the release of the Epstein files. Now that Donald Trump changed his mind, they've changed their minds. Thank you for yielding.
I would just claim 5 minutes. I would just point to the subpoena that Chairman Comer sent on August 5th of this year. I'm just going to read it. Now, frankly, I'll ask unanimous consent to put it in the record here. Scheduled to subpoena, in accordance with the attached schedule instructions, you, the Honorable Pamela J. Bondi, in your capacity as Attorney General of the United States, are required to produce the following documents and communications that are in your possession, custody, or control in unredacted form, except for redactions to protect the personally identifiable information of any victims, for any child sex abuse materials defined by the Department of Justice manual, or any other redactions required by law. And then there are seven sections here. Number 1, all documents and communications relating or referring to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell, and further relating to or referring to trafficking, exploitation of minors, sexual abuse, or related activity. Number 2, all documents and communications contained within the case file regarding United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. Number 3, all documents and communications contained within the case file regarding United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell. Number 4, all documents and communications contained within the file pertaining to the investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. So this would answer what Mr. Raskin, I think, has raised real questions about multiple times in today's hearing. Number 5, all documents and communications relating or referring to United States versus Jeffrey Epstein, United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, and the investigation of Mr. Epstein that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. Again, answering, I think, getting to the information that Mr. Raskin seeks. All documents, number 6, all documents and communications between the Executive Office of the President, including the Executive Office of President Joseph R. Biden Jr., and the Department of Justice relating to or referring to United States versus Jeffrey Epstein, United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, and the investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. And number 7, all documents and communications relating to or referring to the death of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. So seven but different bullet points. Every single one starts with the word all. I think the gentleman from New York earlier said that this wouldn't get the documents that started the, yes, it would. This covers everything. And the Oversight Committee has subpoenaed all that information. And it's coming in. I think there's 30,000 pages coming in, but it's a rolling production. This is the typical way it works. We've done a lot of investigations around here. It's always a rolling production. So I think we're going to get the material. That's Oversight Committee is doing it. It's unfortunate that Mr. Goldman made the comments he did about the very fine chairman of the Oversight Committee, but he is getting the information that the American people asked for and that many members had demanded for a long time, including members on the Democrat side. So I'd ask unanimous that be entered into the record. Who seeks recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
Because if lawmakers can't even take the most basic step toward transparency, then what chance do victims really have? This debate isn't business as usual, it's a moral test, and Jim Jordan just failed it. When Jim Jordan took the floor, he spoke in a tone that was calm, technical, and almost dismissive. He listed subpoenas, explained rolling productions, and treated the entire Epstein debate as if it were nothing more than a paperwork shuffle. On the surface, it sounded responsible. Documents were requested, pages are coming in, oversight is working, but look closer, and you'll see what was really happening. Jordan wasn't fighting for truth or accountability. He was deflecting, reducing one of the darkest scandals in modern history to a checklist of legal filings. Survivors weren't mentioned, their voices weren't centered. Instead, the focus was on procedure, on hiding behind bureaucratic language that made inaction sound like progress. And that's the point when politicians turn crimes against children into dry discussions about schedules and files. They're not protecting justice, they're protecting power. Survivors don't need rolling productions, they need answers, they need action, they need Congress to finally break the silence that has lasted for decades. Jordan's framing might sound polished, but the reality is raw. Every day of delay means justice denied, and every excuse reveals where loyalty truly lies. Representative Dan Goldman refused to let the hearing drift into technicalities. Instead of drowning in legal language, he cut straight to the human cost. He reminded the chamber that this isn't about political points, it's about children whose lives were shattered and survivors who've waited far too long for justice. To make his case, Goldman used a surprisingly simple but powerful reference, Frozen, the animated film he's watched countless times with his young daughter. In it, a character offers a lesson: if you can't see the future, the only choice is to do the next right thing. For Goldman, that was the point lawmakers seemed determined to ignore. Even if you believe the other side failed in the past, does that excuse doing nothing now? His question hit hard. If you truly care about victims, then why not sign the discharge petition and release the files? Goldman's words stripped away the excuses and the partisan games. They forced colleagues to face a basic moral truth, that protecting survivors should never be optional, and certainly not conditional on who controls Congress. His challenge was clear: this moment isn't about scoring wins, it's about whether leaders will finally do the next right thing. Jamie Raskin entered the debate with a sharper edge. Where Jordan leaned on technical details, Raskin went straight for the heart of the hypocrisy. He reminded the chamber of a truth often ignored in politics: every accusation is a confession. For years, members of the GOP had demanded the release of the Epstein files. They claimed transparency was essential, that justice required shining light on the network of power and protection surrounding Epstein. But now, suddenly, urgency had vanished. Now, excuses replaced outrage, and paperwork became the shield. Raskin's point was brutal in its simplicity. The very people accusing Democrats of inaction were the ones abandoning their own stated principles. He showed how shifting narratives weren't about justice, but about political convenience. And by exposing that contradiction, he put the focus back where it belonged, on the survivors. For Raskin, this wasn't just about files or procedures, it was about loyalty. Loyalty to victims who deserve answers, or loyalty to a political machine determined to bury the truth. His message was unmistakable: if leaders once demanded transparency but now run from it, then their true confession is clear: they care more about protecting allies than protecting children. What emerged in the hearing wasn't just a clash over files, it was a familiar pattern of denial. Politicians stood at the microphone insisting that everything was under control, that the process was moving, that justice was simply a matter of patience. But for survivors, patience has been the cruelest lie of all. Each new promise of rolling productions or documents on the way feels less like progress and more like delay. The strategy is subtle but effective: convince the public that appearances equal action, while the truth remains locked away. This pattern has played out time and time again in Washington. Leaders make bold assurances, but when it comes to accountability, the follow-through evaporates. Survivors are told to wait, then wait again, while political energy is spent on framing the debate rather than solving it. That's the essence of denial: not an outright refusal to acknowledge the problem, but a carefully orchestrated attempt to distract from it. And in the Epstein scandal, denial has become a second form of protection for the powerful. The danger isn't only in what remains hidden, but in how long the hiding can be stretched out under the guise of procedure and responsibility. The Epstein scandal has never been just about one man, it has always been a mirror reflecting the way power shields itself. Behind every headline about Epstein's crimes are institutions, leaders and systems that either look the other way or actively work to protect him. That's why the debate over the files matters so much. These documents don't just hold the names and details of one predator, they expose a network, they reveal who had access, who enabled and who stayed silent when action was possible. For survivors, this is not an abstract battle over politics. It's about whether the country will admit how deeply the rot of complicity runs. Every delay, every excuse, every watered-down promise tells us more about our political culture than about the case itself. When lawmakers minimize or stall, they show that protecting institutions still comes before protecting children, and that's what makes this scandal such a powerful mirror. It forces us to ask, if our leaders can't even confront one of the clearest examples of abuse and cover-up, how many other injustices remain hidden? The answer is chilling, and it's why the fight over transparency in this case will echo far beyond these files. If there's one thing history teaches us, it's that politicians rarely act without pressure. The fight over the Epstein files is no different. Survivors have spoken out, advocates have marched, and the public has demanded answers. Yet too often outrage fades, and with it, the urgency for change. That's why public pressure is not just helpful, it's essential. Lawmakers need to feel the weight of millions of voices insisting that these files see the light of day. Because every time the story slips from the headlines, the silence grows deeper, and those in power find more room to stall. Survivors deserve more than symbolic gestures, they deserve action backed by accountability, and that accountability won't come from within Congress alone, it has to come from outside, from citizens who refuse to let the issue die in committee rooms and procedural hearings. The truth is simple: sunlight is the only antidote to secrecy. If we don't demand transparency, the cycle of denial and delay will continue. But if the public keeps pushing, keeps asking, keeps demanding, then the pressure will build until the files are no longer optional. Justice will never come quietly, it has to be forced into the open. At the end of the day, this debate was never about subpoenas, rolling productions, or technical definitions of oversight. It was about whether America will finally confront the truth or continue hiding behind excuses. Survivors of Epstein's crimes have carried their pain for decades, waiting for a justice system that too often turned its back. The Epstein files are more than paper, they are a test of national values. Will lawmakers stand with victims, or with the powerful figures who benefited from silence? Each speech, each vote, each delay writes that answer in real time, and the public is watching. History has shown that excuses eventually collapse, but accountability leaves a mark that lasts. If Congress fails here, it sends a chilling message that victims of abuse can be pushed aside whenever politics demands it. But if leaders choose transparency, they can show that justice is not reserved for the privileged, it belongs to everyone. The choice is stark, and it will define more than just this case. It will define whether America stands for truth or for silence. And in the end, history will judge us not by what we said, but by what we chose to do. So now is the moment: raise your voice, demand accountability, and make sure the Epstein files are finally released.